You are listening to Wicked Psychotherapists, a podcast where two psychotherapists show you that taking care of and learning about mental health doesn't have to be wicked hard.
Hey guys, it's Tanya.
Hey, it's Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapists.
Yeah, so today we are continuing on in the Adam Sandler saga of us dissecting his movies and watching him. We have another movie. This is from the new era of Adam. This is like his latest film, Murder Mystery, which Murder Mystery 1 and Murder Mystery 2 are both on Netflix right now. These are the movies that he did with Jennifer Aniston. I think there's probably going to be more in the future. We are going to be focusing on Murder Mystery, mainly the first one, but may reference the second one. So what did you think of these movies? Like, what was it in comparison to Adam's older style of movies?
Well, I guess it's completely different. I think he and Jennifer did one movie before this together. I can't remember.
I think so. Yeah, maybe. Maybe they did.
But it's a different thing because you're not sure how it's supposed to be. They're both comedians in their own right. Before this, we only know Jennifer from Friends. It was a little different. I wasn't sure how to take it at first because you're seeing him kind of like not the person that everyone's going to, because in a lot of his other movies it's like, oh, everyone's always drawn to him, or he has a group of friends. This one, he has one friend, and his friend's covering up his lie because he's kind of too ashamed to tell his wife what his truth is. So I kind of liked it. I first I wasn't sure how I would like it. I didn't really love the mustache.
Oh no, yeah, me neither.
But I did like it. It was good. I did laugh out loud a couple of times.
Yeah, I agree. It's a more mature Adam, right? It's a big leap from Big Daddy. He's not making those silly jokes. He's a married man. If anything, it's almost like the relationship is because Jennifer Aniston and himself, Audrey and Nick, they're married, and maybe a little bit in a rut or feeling like they're doing the same things over and over. He's made these promises to her to like take her on this European vacation since their honeymoon. They've been married like 15 years and it still hasn't happened. You know, they have the same routines. You could tell like just in watching their nightly rituals that they're in a pattern of being a married couple, right? And he still, I think I actually really appreciated that the comedy they played off of each other. I liked their chemistry, which I was surprised I did, because I don't think of Jennifer Aniston, and this may just be me. I know her obviously from Friends, but I know the movies she's been in, which I'm not a huge fan of that genre that she tends to fall in, kind of the rom-com-ish movies. You know, she kind of tends to be more of like a sort of scatterbrained character who's not really funny, but it sort of maybe is, but not like directly funny. And so I think it was a little bit of a change up for her. I actually think she did pretty good. I think she was pretty funny. I liked her character in this. She's really into murder mystery. She reads murder mystery novels, and that's her passion. She's a hairdresser, and Nick, Adam Sandler, he's a cop, and he has failed his detective's exam like 3 times, and he's told his wife is a detective. Yeah, and he's just lying to her, basically. And there's something to that. I think he feels like shame and disappointment, but I think he also feels like pressure, right? Of like, you know, there's kind of nothing has really changed. And he probably feels that from his wife. And so he kind of feels like, oh, this would be something to be excited about, something different.
Well, and also with his best friend, they have the same job, but his best friend's able to save and get his wife diamonds. And Nick is so predictable where the best friend's wife is like, oh, I bet, you know, like, oh, I'm surprised you're not just giving her an Amazon gift card. Meanwhile, he had just bought the Amazon gift card and was like, I need to not give her the card right now.
Audrey is not very happy with his being romantic, his being thoughtful in the relationship, gestures that have maybe fallen by the wayside or never lived up to their honeymoon. So he decides to say, okay, well, I guess I have to give her the European trip. So he's like, all right, we're going to Europe. Like, that's the big surprise, because she just kind of seems so disappointed and like, come on, you know, you've never really done anything and we've never gone to Europe. And he's like, that was the surprise, we're going. And more spontaneously than she realizes, he has to plan a trip to Europe. It's very much on a budget. They're not in first class, just in regular economy, which looks pretty nice to me, honestly. He has a bus tour planned, which is tough in Europe and all this stuff. But on the plane, Audrey meets this. She's kind of wandering around. She's looking for earplugs because Nick is snoring, and they're like, oh, $9. And she's like, screw this. So she just kind of goes and finds some in first class, and then is kind of hanging around, just eating the pistachios or whatever. It's just like, and then some guy chats her up, and then this is how the storyline jumps in from here, because this guy he's actually the son of a very wealthy billionaire or whatever, very well known apparently because Audrey knows him. Start to talk. They seem a little flirty. Nick comes up because he's woken up from his nap and he's seeing that. You see a little bit of tension in their marriage, right? She's kind of flirty because she feels emotionally neglected. Maybe he's just not the most romantic. He feels that pressure and shame, but can't live up to what she needs. So there's that setup with them. The guy they meet, I cannot remember his name. Is it Charles? Charles or something? The nephew?
I can't remember. I'll have to look it up later.
Well, the nephew of the rich dude, Malcolm, he invites them. He's like, when you guys get off the plane, you can come on my yacht with my family. And there's all these screwed up dynamics there, but you can come.
It's Charles, you're right.
Charles. And then Nick is like, no, absolutely not. And then when they get off the plane, he sees the bus tour and it's packed. It looks like they're packed in like sardines. It's so not luxurious. And they're thinking, ooh, a yacht might be nice.
Families are arguing. It just seems like it would be difficult. And he's like, all right, we'll do it. We'll go on the...
Yeah, which I gotta say, I'm not a fan of meeting somebody and then, if not like this has ever happened, that I've ever met someone and they've been like, come on my yacht. But, I think I would be nervous and apprehensive, especially with all the true crime I watch and what we were just talking about before, with kind of going on someone's yacht, just going out to sea and not knowing the person. But I have to say, I think seeing that bus tour, I may have just taken that chance. I don't know. I think I might have.
Well, especially if it's like that and it's not just the bus tour to your hotel, you're going to be with these people for your whole week. That could be
it's like and you can tell there's no air conditioning, the windows are down. I've done bus tours and like just traveling from one place to the next in a different country. It was in Asia and it was horrendous. Like it was horrendous. I can't even imagine just being the whole week on that bus. They decide to take Charles up on his offer, and then they come into this whole different family dynamic that they're not aware of. What I like about Audrey and Nick, Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston, is they kind of are very like, it almost is like they're watching a TV show. They're just like, oh, look at that. They're like so excited about it.
And they're kind of talking and gossiping to each other about it.
Yeah. It's like such a fun experience for them, even though they're like, this is awkward and there's a lot of weird family dynamics. They're just like, oh yeah, definitely. They're enjoying the entertainment of it. I don't know. I kind of was trying to put myself in the position. I was like, would I go on that yacht? Like, I know it sounds like, oh yeah, you definitely would, but you don't know those people as well. And that kind of sounds like just the beginning of a murder mystery, true crime, like a literal murder mystery, true crime story. So then we meet cast of people on the yacht. There's a bunch of people on there. There's the nephew, Charles's ex-fiance, who was now dating his rich billionaire uncle, or was now married to, I'm sorry. But that was his ex-fiance. So there's that dynamic. She's in her early 20s, very young. And then there's a movie star who is a benefactor of the billionaire or something.
Yeah.
Gracie. Yeah. And then also the billionaire's son, Tobias, whatever, as well as the colonel who saved the billionaire's life and the bodyguard for the colonel, who is just big, scary looking dude. So there's, all these cast of characters on there. Oh, and the race car driver, Juan Carlos, I think, or Carlos Juan. I don't remember his name, but he supposedly doesn't speak English. He is responding in set forms of like, yes, very fast, like just kind of race car terms. Yeah. But it's so funny to me because Nick and Audrey don't feel awkward being there. It's such a random set of people, but also like a family. And they just kind of like go and they're like, oh yeah, hi, we're the Spitzes. They're not even like, oh, should we not be here? This is really awkward and weird. They're just so excited about the adventure.
I think that's where both of their professions probably come in play too. Because, Audrey's used to talking to strangers all the time and getting information, being a hairstylist, kind of a therapist. And Nick too probably has to talk to a lot of people, being a police officer and knowing people and getting information from people. So just by being like, hey, yeah, we're just going to be here. We're not nervous and we're just going to be part of it is probably normal for them.
Yeah. It's funny because Nick ends up being that Malcolm flies on board with his helipad on the yacht, makes his entrance, and he's like, oh, we're going to have a family meeting about the will or whatever. And he, is like, and who are you? To the Spitzes. They introduce themselves. They're like, do you want us to leave? And he's like, no, it's fine. Like, he's totally fine with them just being there about this very personal
He's like you can hear
situation.
Me. You can hear me tearing everyone down. And that's fine.
He's very disappointed in everyone, so he's planning on signing the will to leave everything to his wife, the like 20-something-year-old former fiance of his nephew. And right before he goes to sign it, the lights go out just like a murder mystery, and he's stabbed to death with the dagger that was on board. It made me think, have you ever been to a murder mystery before?
I have. Years ago, I went to a dinner show type of thing. I remember going with my mom and my sister. It was kind of fun. Just like a murder mystery dinner type, they acted out on, I don't know if they acted out on stage or around you, but it was kind of fun. There used to be a train one that I've always wanted to go on, like a murder mystery dinner show train that always seemed fun.
Yeah. Kind of like the Orient Express, sort of like Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to one. I just went to a Golden Girls themed one. My sister brought me, and it was really cool. It wasn't a dinner though, just kind of a show or whatever. And they did act all around us, and they were like in the character of the Golden Girls, because I'm obsessed with the Golden Girls, if you don't know this. And it was really funny. It was fun. It wasn't a serious murder mystery one. It was more like just kind of silly, but I loved it. I thought it was great. It was kind of typical if you went to one of those shows where the lights go out and then you have to put together the clues. But yeah, see, I think that, the murder mystery element really falls true to a murder mystery. Audrey is really into it and excited about the mystery, not obviously about the murder. She's like so into all the clues and everything.
And she's right there. I think it's funny when the first murder happens, Audrey is like, oh, Nick's a detective, but he'll be able to solve it. And then everyone's like, well, what do we do? They pull out the knife and then put it back in. He's like, no, don't do that.
Definitely don't do that.
But it is nice, their relationship, how even through all of this, they're still trying to be, she's very supportive of him. And he's trying to be, like, even when there are times throughout the movie that she's just a hairdresser, just a hairstylist, but you kind of watch their progression of their relationship, and it's kind of nice. I do like their communication with each other.
I do too. There's points where you definitely see some tension, but I think it's very typical tension of a marriage. I think he's got a lot of insecurity and shame around the fact that he can't pass this detective exam. She is very interested in these clues, and she's trying to be like, oh yeah, he can figure it out. It actually is like kind of more her that's into it and kind of sees the clues. She reads a lot of murder mystery and everything, so she's kind of like, it's in her brain as a fun thing. She's very into the whole element of it.
Even like, jumping ahead, like when they're in the library, she's like, it's like death in the library. It's like, what? Like
she's like living out her books and murder mysteries. It's kind of a fun thing for them, but they're also scared because it seems like somebody is trying to get to them and possibly kill them. So worried about that, but they're still having fun. It's funny because there's a stagnancy in their marriage that they can see. That's probably just very typical of like, they've been together for almost 2 decades, right? And they're like probably just trying to find a little spice. And so this is like an adventure for them, and they're working together, and it's a unique experience they can share. It really is just the right medicine for what they need. Then it turns out they think it's Malcolm's son that murdered him. No, it's Nick that thinks that. And then he ends up getting murdered next.
Yeah, and he's like, whoops, guess it's not him.
Yeah, it's because Audrey was kind of like sort of dispute. She was like, I don't know, that seems too obvious, And then the bodyguard of the colonel shows up and starts talking to them and saying he knows who it is and thinks it's a colonel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does he think it's a colonel? Yeah, because he lost his wife and child in an attack or something. Like he had to protect him.
Yeah.
So maybe he's like just always wanted vengeance on him or something because he lost like the love of his life and his child. And then the bodyguard himself ends up getting shot through the door, which was probably meant for the Spitzes.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh yeah.
And I could not understand why the Spitzes were the target unless because he's a detective and she kind of is unraveling the clues. They just didn't want them to figure it out. Like, why were the killers after them?
I think they thought they would get in the way. They were that unplanned factor of like, you might solve it. And they realized how Audrey was getting so into like, oh my gosh, no, we need to figure this out. And I think they probably were like, okay, let's take care of them. And that's why they got that message to go to that room where they met the bodyguard and then the bodyguard ends up getting shot. And then people just end up getting knocked down in this whole party. They end up landing in France. There's a detective that gets introduced called Laurent Delacroix. He's very French, very old school detective. And he's just kind of useless. He's not really doing anything. He's having the couple do all the work, yet he's suspicious of them and, very much ragging on Nick that he's not a detective, even goes on TV being like, he is not a detective, even though he represents himself as that. So there's all these people that end up getting killed off from the party because they're all being questioned as to what's going on. Some people are still assuming it's them as the Americans. They're kind of this new factor that's involved when all these murders are happening. Everybody else has been together before,
right.
So they think,
who are they? I did like the way that the movie was created because there were times I was like, wait a minute, is the detective actually behind all of this? Is this person? I never once thought the two people who we find out did it. It's pretty well done for a comedy too. Like you're like, wait a minute, I didn't really even see this. And I've seen this movie a couple times and I did not remember how it ended or what happened. Very dysfunctional family and friends.
And a lot of people might want vengeance on Malcolm because of all these things. There's so many people had motives and just kind of being like, who is the person that would want it the most? And also figuring out Grace's secret, which if you've seen this movie, there's a spoiler alert in this. So, it tells not like this is such a huge mystery because it's not like, it's a comedy, like you said. I actually forgot to, I had rewatched this past weekend. I don't know if I was starting to remember or just like really realize it, probably because I was remembering who it was like towards the middle. But I did forget too. So yeah, but we start to, there's all these antics going on where the couple is trying to work out who's who. They're trying to save people, running through different countries in Europe. At some point, they're in Italy. They're trying to figure out who wants people dead. Meanwhile, the French inspector thinks it's the couple. The Spitzes and everything. People just keep getting knocked off each time. We learn later that it was the killer who was trying to get to the couple, but it's just these other people that got in the way. I think what's really important is, like you said, like seeing how the Spitzes kind of come together in this. They're really kind of excited by this. At first, Nick is not super excited. He's like, oh, I'm going to get some sleep. And she's like, how can you sleep? She's so excited about it. It's kind of like it reignites his thinking about his investigative skills, what he is capable of and everything. They make a pretty good team.
He starts realizing that maybe not everyone is able to take tests, either taken the detective test like 3 or 4 times. Maybe that's not his forte, but he does definitely have the skills to be a detective. And maybe also his wife, leaning on his wife, helped him with it and realizing how strong their marriage is and how strong their communication is with each other.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely reconnected them, and I think found a new space for being able to kind of communicate with some of these things that were maybe being hidden by both of them. her disappointment, which I think was being shown in different ways, wasn't hidden. He was feeling that, and then he was feeling like he had to hide that. So it kind of reconnected and put that out in the open. It helped their marriage out. It helped them out as a couple. And it bonded them in their shared adventure and experience that they both really seemed to love and enjoy at the end.
Yeah, which even I think it was interesting at the end when she's driving the car and some other stuff happens, and then he mentioned, then he's proud and he says like, well, because she's she's driving the car and she's doing a great job, and he's like, you're so awesome. Then at the very end, when she says this clue about the person, you wouldn't put a hat on if you just got your hair done. And everyone's like, well, how would you even know that? And he's like, because she's a hairstylist. Like, he's all proud of it now instead of saying you're just a hairstylist or you just do hair.
He's giving her credit and that she would be aware of that. Yeah. And so they definitely are able to appreciate each other more from this experience. And they do figure it out. They figure out that Grace is actually the daughter that never died in childbirth, and she's kind of this illegitimate child who survived and came back to claim this fortune. And she was working with the race car driver. Is it Carlos Juan or Juan Carlos? I don't remember, but the one that he can't really speak English, supposedly.
Very fast.
So they catch Grace, and then they think it's over, but then there's a clue at the end where Audrey says something in English, and the race car driver responds, and like he's understood, when the whole movie he is not understood at all. He says like, de nada, like, oh, you're welcome. Like, he fully understood her. And she's like, wait a minute. And then she's realizes,
like, you speak English?
Oh, yeah. He's like, of course I do, you idiots. And your Latin sucks. He's like, hey. Yeah. And so they figure it out. They kind of partner together, and Audrey, she's got a lot of skills, but so does Nick. And they both kind of realize their potential in that, and that they are able to work together and to rediscover things about each other, themselves past that stagnancy and tension. So it's kind of like the microscopic and the macroscopic stuff going on in the story. It's also really funny. It's got some really funny points. Adam has some zingers sometimes that he just kind of says off the cuff that I'm like, if I hadn't heard that, I wouldn't have caught that. But he mumbles them, and they're pretty funny at various points throughout the first and the second one. But yeah, and in the second one, we realize they start, a private investigator business together. They're struggling, but then they get an invite from the Maharaja. Oh, he's another character. We totally forgot about him. Yeah. The Maharaja. He's just like they're in the first one, he was just he was kind of there for comic relief. He spoke interestingly and it's really funny, but he ended up being just like a pretty good guy, but he ends up getting kidnapped in the second one, and it's a whole chase and figuring out the different clues for that all along the way. A similar plot, but with different details.
Yeah. I don't remember the second one. I'll have to rewatch it some other time. But yeah, the way they set him up, you almost think he's going to be the villain throughout all of it. You're like, oh gosh, but that's probably who he really is. And yeah, there's a couple of people who I thought like, okay, they're all, well, I guess it's kind of like the movie Clue. Like, who is it going to be?
Oh, yeah. And then Adam says, oh, it was the butler. I said it was the butler because her last name, Grace Butler, at the end of the first one. He's like, didn't I say that on the plane?
The butler always does it.
That was pretty funny. It's a pretty good murder mystery, but it's also really funny. If you love Adam, if you love Jennifer Aniston, they really do play off of each other well. I didn't think there would be that level of chemistry, but they're actually pretty good. I did see after these movies came out that people loved to watch them to hate them. Did you see those reviews?
No.
Apparently people thought that these movies were not the greatest, but they loved them. It was kind of like a cult following. I guess they appreciated something about them, but they didn't think they were that great. And that's kind of what Adam and Jennifer Aniston are trying to embrace. I think they're planning on making more movies.
Maybe that's kind of like how like the movie Sharknadoes and those stupid movies, like where it's like they're so bad that they just keep having more and more, and then eventually the people start embracing like, okay, this is so cheesy or this is just so bad. I haven't heard that about the murder mysteries, but I guess I can see it though, because it is kind of cheesy. Like we even mentioned his cheesy mustache. It's very predictable. We're on a cruise and someone's gonna die. How are we gonna solve it?
I like that.
And then they leave at the very end. They're on the Orient Express, which is kind of funny.
When I first saw these, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, those were cheesy. But when I watched it again in the lens of what we would talk about with the couple stuff and some of these other themes and embracing it for what it is kind of goofy and silly, but fun. I like them. I think that's what people lean on. They're like, it's not a great work of cinematography, but it's fun, right?
Yeah,
kind of thing. Which I think is probably, I don't think that that's all that bad from what Adam Sandler would want. I don't think he was meaning for this to be some great work of art, as long as people had fun. He probably knew there was a lot of goofiness to this.
Yeah.
But I do think there were some decent movies with some pretty decent themes. All the interplay between the characters, right? Like who done it, finding people's motives, very psychological, how people are trying to suspect other people, maybe take the blame off themselves or just come up with a suspect, what people do for money, motives, right? Or revenge, like the race car drivers, because his father had raced and lost his legs or whatever, so he wanted revenge for that. But I think these movies are definitely a ways away from his early movies. I think that's maybe what I didn't like at first. I was kind of comparing it to his early movies when the first time I watched it, and I was like, this is weird, and it's very much an evolution of who he is. He's got to make different types of movies, and he also grows up and has different ways of expressing his humor. He's trying out different characters, different plots. I could appreciate that more because of our Adam discussions this time around, but yeah. So do you remember the first time you watched it, were you super surprised it was Grace and the race car driver?
I was, and I was surprised this time too. Because I didn't remember. Because the race car driver just looked so nice and so dumb. And you just picture like, oh, he's helping. But then when you go back and it's like, oh no, he's tripping him and he was doing this. But yeah, I'm surprised. I wasn't as surprised because Grace kind of seemed like there was something up with her, but I didn't expect the race car driver. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think the first time around, I don't really remember, but I started to suspect the race car driver because he did seem, I was like, that just seems really silly that he can only say those words. It just seemed a little too overplayed. But I was like, I don't really know the motive why, but it was a surprise. I was like, oh, okay, so it's these two. I still kind of didn't right before they said it the first time, I think. And the second time I did forget up until the middle part. And then I was kind of like, oh yeah, I think I forgot about the race car driver, but I remembered Grace. It's a really fun set of movies. And it looks like the ending of the second one, it looks like there would be a third one. There's definitely a lead in for that. I don't know if they've said that, but there definitely is a lead in for that. So might have to look for that somewhere down the road if that's ever going to happen. But yeah, so anything else you want to add to the discussion?
No, I mean, I guess if we're thinking about psychological or anything, I guess one thing with Nick and Audrey is like maybe Nick could have been a little more honest at the beginning, and maybe some of this wouldn't have turned out as, because they wouldn't have been targeting them as much. The detective and his wife, they would have just been like two people that were invited, and they might not have had everyone want to kill them as much, because then Audrey would have been like, oh yeah, Nick isn't a detective and we'll just kind of sit back. But I'm sure she couldn't have helped it. She probably wanted to get right in on it no matter what because of her fascination and obsession with the murder mysteries.
Yeah. I mean, he still is a cop too. I think when people hear cop, they're like, oh, they kind of just blend all them together. So yeah, that's a possibility, definitely. So now to come to our question, which the only one I could really think of is the same one I asked you before. Is if you were presented with the chance of going to Europe and you knew that the next week would be on a bus with the Tours, Gonzalez Tours, I think it was. And, it seems very crowded, or going on this nice yacht, but with complete strangers where there's a possibility you could get, thrown overboard, or you don't know who these people are. They could be traffickers. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Right. Which do you think you would choose?
So does the bus have air conditioning, or is it like it is in the movie with the windows open and it's probably summertime?
I'm going to say that there's probably some air conditioning. I think the bus would probably have air conditioning. Let's say
Yeah.
that. I know
I
it's
don't
in the
know.
movie,
I
but
don't think I'd want to be on a bus tour for my entire trip, because I've done the bus tours before, like, oh, we're going to visit this historic something, and it's like an hour. You're going there, you're going back to your hotel, not for the entire week. I don't think I can handle a bus tour. I'd get sick. It would just be really not even just all the same people over and over. The boat would seem more appealing, but I also would want the freedom to get off the boat. And I think in either instance, you can't. If you're dictated with the boat, where you're going, and same with the bus.
but it's also like you don't know these people on the yacht.
Oh,
Some
you don't-
random person.
Yeah, that's true. You don't know anyone. And at least the bus tour, it's a little bit more legitimate. If it was real life, I would probably take the bus tour, because I would know, okay, at least I'm going to my hotel. I can choose to go on the bus tour every day or not, because they'll pick me up at the hotel, or I can just walk around town.
Yeah. I think I would choose the same because although I would I like the yachts 100% seems more appealing, but it just seems like the start of every murder mystery or trafficking case. I think we know too much about that now. People disappear and don't know these people. There's all this strange money involved, and people can disappear and not even know, like, oh, that wasn't the plan. So where did they go? There wouldn't be any trace of you.
Right.
I think that would be way too risky. Although, of course, I'd rather be on a yacht. It's just the circumstances of not knowing the people and not really knowing what's going on there, which they didn't. I don't think I would have. I don't think I would. And just like you, yeah, I think I'd probably just be like, okay, maybe we can choose to go on the bus or not. Maybe we could do our own thing. A bus tour does not sound appealing to me.
No.
I'd rather just figure something else out outside of that. That's probably because I've watched so much true crime and we're aware of the things that can happen. No, I agree. That did look real nice. So, all right. So, yeah, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, all the socials. We are on YouTube as well. And don't forget, stay wicked.
And keep your mind well. All right. Well, see you and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much for listening today to the Wicked Psychotherapists podcast. Be sure to like and follow us on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts.